Good morning and welcome back to the lecture series on refugee migration diaspora. So, today we are discussing our module Historicizing South Asian Migrations through case studies of select South Asian literary texts. Our text that we take into consideration today for the lecture is Shyam Salvadurai's novel Funny Boy. So, before we start discussing Funny Boy, we have to understand the dynamics, the disputes, and the issues associated with the India Sri Lanka border. Now, India and Sri Lanka have deep rooted historical, cultural, and economic connections. The Tamil population that is present in Sri Lanka shares a vastly similar linguistic and cultural ties with the part in India we have as Tamil Nadu. So definitely the Tamils that are living in Sri Lanka have very similar habits, very similar culture with the Tamils we have residing in the part of Tamil Nadu in India. Both India and Sri Lanka have engaged in diplomatic and political interactions since the independence of India in 1947. However, we see that the civil war that happened in Sri Lanka, which lasted between 1983 and 2009, and this was basically an intermittent insurgency that we see, rebellion that would happen against the government, and it would be initiated by the LTTE. Full form is Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. And these civil wars, these intermittent insurgencies have vastly strained the relations or the diplomatic relation between India and Sri Lanka over the years. So we see that the reason for civil war is the minoritized position of the Tamil people, the Tamil populace in Sri Lanka, and their demand for visibility, rights, and justice in Sri Lanka. Their marginalized position, result in the formation of a group such as LTTE, and these insurgencies have had a lot of pressure or strain in the India-Sri Lanka relationship over the years. Fishermen disputes arise due to competing claims over the rich fishing grounds that we find in the Park Strait. So, Park Strait has rich fishing grounds over which both fishermen from India and from Sri Lanka compete. They compete for these rich resources. Migration of the Tamils, especially during the Sri Lankan civil war, intensified these disputes further. Fishermen's boats are often used for fishing and for illegal migration across the maritime border. So, the complex relationship between the two nations, that is India and Sri Lanka, involves so many different kinds of dimensions. It could be the political dimension, economic dimension, as well as the human rights or personal dimensions. So, the 1974 and 1976 maritime boundary treaties that were signed between India and Sri Lanka were aimed at clarifying and demarcating the territorial waters, and there would be something called exclusive economic zones, or in short EEZ, of both nations. So each nation would enjoy exclusive economic zones, and that's where each country's fishermen could enjoy or exploit their resources. They could do their fishery within that zone. These treaties specifically defined the boundaries across the Park Strait, Gulf of Mannar, and the Bay of Bengal. The maritime boundary treaties of 1974 and 1976 delineated the territorial waters. So this is something, once again, very peculiar, and critics that are looking at the human dimension of such treaties, parts of, international diplomatic relations, would go on to ask how viable it is to even try to draw boundaries and lines through the water, across the water. Can we actually divide water body in terms of a part belonging to Sri Lanka and another part belonging to India? It almost sounds impractical. So these issues, the disagreements over the boundaries, however, continue to cause friction, and it impacts the fishermen and the migrants. And all these issues are interlinked, and migration often happen as a result of the economic vulnerability, the economic hardships that are caused by the disputes between the two nations. So, the fishermen conflict is not only an economic issue, we have to understand that it is a part of a larger geopolitical struggle. It reflects the broader tensions between Tamil Nadu's support for Sri Lankan Tamils and India's national diplomacy. And these disputes have become a representation, a proxy for addressing Tamil migration and the cultural identity issues, or the identity crisis that the minority Tamil population in Sri Lanka constantly suffer. The Park Strait is a narrow body of water which separates Tamil Nadu, part of India, from the northern province of Sri Lanka. So it's just a narrow body of water that separates Tamil Nadu from Sri Lanka. And Park Strait connects the Bay of Bengal to the Gulf of Mannar, and it is strategically important for both fisheries and for maritime navigation. So, due to the short distance between the two shores of Park Strait, sometimes as narrow as 53 to 80 kilometers, and such a narrow, distance would mean that the two shores, the two opposite shores, are practically visible. Due to this narrowness, fishermen from both sides have historically used this region for fishing. Now, the Kachathevu Island, which is located within the Park Strait, was ceded to Sri Lanka in 1974, and it remains a point of contention that further strains the India-Sri Lanka relationship. The fact that Kachathevu Island became a part of Sri Lankan territory. So, the geography itself makes it easy for illegal migration and cross border movements to happen, which impact both Tamil Nadu and Sri Lanka's northern Tamils' culture, political life, and other different aspects of living. Now, let's take a look at this map. This map shows the Park Strait, right? We have the Park Strait highlighting the Tamil Nadu part of India, and then the northern Sri Lanka, right? So basically, this thin gap, right? And then we have the Kachathevu Island. So the map illustrates territorial zones based on the 1974 and 1976 treaties, with fishing zones and migration routes also marked. This map enables us to visualize the geographic importance of this entire region in the fishermen disputes and migration issues. So we have picture of, how fishery happens in this region. It's a very kind of a symbolic picture. We see that the Indian boats, the Sri Lankan boats are all, vying for their resources. They have their own countries, flags, and so this region happens to be a very, we could say, a very volatile zone where so many things are happening. Illegal migration through these boats, competition over fisheries, some bit of smuggling. So, and then we see that when the boatsmen are, doing any kind of illegal activities and they're caught, they happen to be basically poor people, and their boats are confiscated. So, all they have for their living is their boat. And once they are found doing any kind of illegal activity, the boats are confiscated and they are detained. So, Park Strait is a shared contested space for both Indian and Sri Lankan fishermen. Many Tamil refugees, particularly during the height of the civil war in Sri Lanka, would use the fishing boats to cross the Park Strait and enter Tamil Nadu in India. This illegal migration increased tensions between Indian and Sri Lankan governments, as fishermen were frequently caught somewhere in the middle. So, fishermen's boats would be used by the Tamils to migrate to India as refugees. And because the fishermen are usually very poor people, they are driven by economic necessity, and they would often become facilitators of these crossings, thereby adding another dimension to the ongoing maritime disputes. So, India has struggled time and again to manage the influx of refugees, resulting in, so many refugee camps growing by the years that we see in Tamil Nadu. These camps become politically charged issues in both Tamil Nadu and in the central Indian politics. Tamil Nadu's cultural and ethnic ties to Sri Lankan Tamils led to political advocacy for the refugee population, because there is a significant section of Tamils living in Tamil Nadu. They would definitely try to support the Tamil refugees that were coming in from through Park Street, and seeking benefits of survival, and then they were seeking citizenry within Indian nation state. The Tamil population would definitely support these refugees, considering their helpless status back in Sri Lanka. So, this entire picture, centering India Sri Lanka border adds so many layers of complexity to the fishermen disputes. Now, keeping this background in mind, we have to study Shyam Selvadurai's novel Funny Boy. So, Funny Boy, which came out in 1994, is set in Sri Lanka during the years that led to the civil war. So we see the civil war as a general backdrop of this story, of this plot line. The novel follows the protagonist, whose name is RG, and who is a young Tamil boy in a country fraught with ethnic tensions. So the different shades of a juvenile's emotions are portrayed through the character of RG. How child who is part of a minority group feels as he grows up in a geopolitical space fraught with ethnic tensions. And we see that this sense of unbelonging, this sense of jeopardy is further multiplied or further amplified in the case of the protagonist RG, owing to the fact that his sexuality or sexual experiences are very different from that of a normal or a heteronormal boy. So the novel serves as both a coming of age story and a narrative of the Tamil diaspora, and it offers readers insight into the emotional and cultural impacts of the Sri Lankan conflict. Selvadurai himself is a Sri Lankan Canadian novelist who was born in Colombo, Sri Lanka in 1965 to a Sinhalese mother and a Tamil father. So he traces his roots to a very mixed background, mixed family, where one parent is a Sinhalese and the other parent is a Tamil. He has shared roots, and so he can completely look at this entire civil war episode in a way, from the position of a third space, maybe more so because he is part of the diaspora. He moved to Canada, and he can evaluate, he can assess the human repercussions from a non-biased point of view. His mixed heritage exposes him to both the community's cultures as well as the conflicts, the different issues which significantly shape his writing. Now, Funny Boy combines personal struggles with a broader narrative of the Sri Lankan Tamil experience during turbulent times. After the ethnic riots that happened in 1983, and the month is called Black July. It happened during the month of July, so known as Black July. Selvadurai and his family fled Sri Lanka and they eventually settled in Canada. This personal experience of migration and displacement is a recurring theme throughout his artworks, particularly in Funny Boy. Selvadurai's debut novel, Funny Boy, brought him critical acclaim. The novel won several awards, including the Lambda Literary Award for Best Gay Men's Fiction. His writing often focuses on themes of identity, sexuality, and ethnic conflict, particularly within the context of Sri Lanka's civil unrest. This novel portrays the rise of ethnic tension between the Tamil minorities and the Sinhalese majority in Sri Lanka. The Tamil families, including that of the protagonist Archie's, start feeling the pressure of displacement, and this actually mirrors the real world migration and the experiences of migration that the Tamils underwent when they had to come to India. As tensions between the Tamil minority and the Sinhalese majority escalate in Sri Lanka, Funny Boy highlights the growing fear among the Tamil families that migration eventually be their only option for survival. The violence that begins to consume Sri Lanka leaves the families such as Arjis into grappling with the question of whether they should flee their homeland or they should stay and face an uncertain future. In the novel, Arj's father very somberly reflects on the possibility of leaving Sri Lanka by saying, I quote, "We must think of leaving or there will be no future for us," unquote. This statement itself from the text, it contains the germ of the internal conflict that so many Tamil families were facing at the time of the civil war in Sri Lanka, where there was always this consideration, there was always this fear of, or the apprehension of losing one's homeland, losing one's identity that is tied to one's home and hearth, and, becoming refugee in a new nation. But then, just to be able to survive, so many families take the decision of fleeing for safety just to save their own lives. So Selvadurai uses this moment of vulnerability, human vulnerability, collective fear and apprehension of the Tamils to mirror the experiences of thousands of Tamils who fled the country during the anti-Tamil riots of 1983, also known as Black July. The violence led to the first large wave of Tamil refugees who sought asylum in countries like India, particularly in Tamil Nadu, which shares cultural and linguistic ties with the Sri Lankan Tamils. So, as the violence worsens and the human impact of civil war is largely visible, and once the animosity sets in, just like we see in the case of India's partition, once animosity sets in, when once insanity sets in, the human moral is plummeting like anything. There is only hitting an abysmal pit. People can lose all their moral dimension, burden, and reduce their instincts to that of animals. So there would be large scale incendiary, pillaging, killing, and the novel illustrates how Tamil families increasingly see migration to India as their only hope for survival. In particularly, the proximity of Tamil Nadu to Sri Lanka, both in terms of geography and in terms of culture, becomes an important factor for the Sri Lankan Tamils. The streets separating Sri Lanka and India become the symbol of both escape and loss, just like the symbol of train, that is almost a constant symbol, a leitmotif that comes back, that keeps coming back in partition artworks. The train that is in the normal times supposed to be a symbol of connector, connecting humanity, becomes a symbol of bloodshed, of hostility, carrying corpses, and also in less extreme situations, it symbolizes leaving one's homeland behind. So it is a symbol of escape and loss, just like the symbol of Park Street here, where one can run away with one's life through the Park Street, but also leave behind so many things that cannot be retrieved once again. Arjie's mother, for instance, at one point expresses her concerns by saying, uh, I quote, "Do you think they will ever stop, or will we always be running?" Unquote. So, how much can people run? What can people run away from, and how far? Right? So her words are almost ringing in the ears of the readers. They deliberate how far and how long and how much can the minorities, the marginalized subjects, run. When can we stop running? Her words highlight the feeling of a perpetual displacement which comes along with the sense of becoming a refugee. The uncertainty of when or whether ever one can truly stop running away from conflict and violence. So there is this sense of, being in exile, being uprooted from one's familiar territory by force and suddenly reduced to someone begging for security in, on political grounds. That is the experience of refuginess, basically. So Funny Boy reflects the real world fears of Sri Lankan Tamil refugees who fled to India in batches, in waves, across different periods in history, at different junctures in history, over many years, over a period of many years. And many feared the loss of their cultural roots and homeland. However, they were confronting so much of a harsh reality that remaining in Sri Lanka would mean facing violence, persecution, and even death. While the novel is deeply personal in its portrayal of Aji's family, it also humanizes the broader political conflict through individual stories. So, this is also something, once again, that we see in the case of partition scholarship. And this is where the lens of history and the lens of literature or creative writing kind of differ. History or historiography is much more formal in nature, and it gives us, it at least tends to give us facts, whereas creative works can extrapolate. They enable us to imagine. They enable us to extend, human relationships beyond, walled off boundaries or walled off, political situations. So, to put it in a very artistic or poetic manner, it wouldn't be wrong to say that creative writing or artworks always have this human touch, this they humanize the question of political conflict, the question of border tension, and they come up with this notion of what if people, reunite again and start living in harmony. It's very difficult to imagine in the face of riots and hostile situations. It's very difficult to believe that the Tamils and the Sinhalese in Sri Lanka will start living with love and harmony in a soon to come future. But then creative works, artworks, come up with these kinds of extrapolations, these kinds of suggestions. What if? And history, through its straight facts, just gives back as if this is going to happen. So what if this happens? What if people become together? What if humanity comes together and all the differences are resolved? Artworks delve more on that, and history gives us as if that is going to happen, because all the facts are kind of against such possibilities. But then the possibilities do remain, and we never know what could happen in the future. So artworks always have this tendency to humanize the experiences, go back, bring out experiences through real life coordinates, touch human psyche, human consciousness, human sensibilities, rather than only talk about the larger political decrees or the larger political chapters that we get to know about from history. So, migration, the process of migration that is shown, that is portrayed in Funny Boy, is not just an abstract concept, but it is shown as a lived experience filled with complex emotions, be it fear, loss, longing, or hope. RG's grandmother, when discussing the possibility of leaving the homeland, says, "This is our home. How can we leave it?" And once again, drawing a parallel with partition texts. So many of the matriarchs, the senior female members from the family, they still cannot believe that they have to leave their homes where they have spent all their lives. They have never seen the public place. Not many elderly women would go, into activities in the public domain. All they knew was the home, and now the home is going. So it's very difficult for elder women, like the grandmother kind of, figure out to understand the consequence of such displacement. So this quote, "How can we leave our home?" underscores the emotional toll of displacement, reflecting how deeply intertwined the concept of home is with one's identity and belonging. So once the home is taken away, a chunk of one's identity is also compromised, it is left behind. This emotional conflict between leaving and staying mirrors the real experiences of so many Tamils who, even as they were finding physical safety in India or in other countries, would continue to feel a deep sense of void, a deep sense of disconnect from their homeland, from their native land. In this way, Funny Boy, we see, bridges the gap between the personal lives of its characters and the larger sociopolitical happenings, the larger sociopolitical issues that lead up to, that add up to the civil war and that drive the Tamil migration out of Sri Lanka while the war is reaching its height. Migration is presented in Funny Boy as both a source of hope and loss. It offers the possibility of escaping ethnic persecution, but at the same time, it also means leaving behind one's homeland and also the comforts of a familiar world. This so whenever we are refugee in a new land, we have to start life afresh, we have to uh, develop knowledge of the surroundings, and we are forever an outsider in a new land. It cannot be the same as one's home. This tension is central to RG's journey because he is grappling with the prospect of leaving a place that has shaped his identity altogether, even as that place becomes increasingly hostile towards him and his family. The novel additionally also reflects the larger reality of the Sri Lankan civil war, during which thousands of Tamil families fled the country, like I have already mentioned. So, through this little child's personal journey, what he understands, how he realizes things, how things dawn on him. Author Selvadurai highlights the emotional toll, the trauma that migration takes, that migration causes on those that are forced to leave their homes, as well as the complicated relationship between national and ethnic identities at the time of conflict. For RG and his family, migration represents both hope and loss. On the one hand, it offers the possibility of escaping violence and finding safety. On the other hand, it suggests or it signifies losing their own home, their national identity, as well as their sense of belonging in Sri Lanka. Such duality, you know, is a central theme in the novel, reflecting the experiences of many Tamil families during that time. So, coming back again, just iterating the quote, if we leave, what will become of us? Who will we be? Right? Once being is kind of challenged, once being in a way is kind of hurt, once the familiar land is left behind, the identity experiences a setback, the being, the existence experiences a setback, right? Who will we be? What will happen to our becoming? There is a kind of there is, after a point, once you are in a new land, there is no control over your being, your becoming, because you are not, a rightful citizen. In a sense, you are a refugee, seeking refuge, seeking protection and security in an unknown land. So, this question captures the profound sense of displacement that migration brings. Leaving Sri Lanka means losing a part of one's identity, a chunk of one's identity, but at the same time, staying back means continuing to face persecution. So, Funny Boy reflects the complex dynamics of cultural survival in the context of displacement, and it offers a very nuanced, a very layered portrayal of Tamil refugees and their quest to maintain their identity. In Funny Boy, Sham Selvadurai highlights the importance of cultural preservation for Tamil migrants and refugees. The novel explores how Tamil traditions offer both comfort and a sense of identity to the families who are otherwise displaced and marginalized. So, the entire novel is narrated through the lens of RG's family, and we see the emotional complexity of maintaining cultural identity in the face of migration and displacement. How do you keep your identity together when your existence, your basic survival is at stake? This novel shows that for Tamil refugees, cultural survival is not just about preserving basic customs, it is also about resisting or defying or kind of challenging erasure of their self in a world that seeks to marginalize them. It's always very challenging for a minoritized, a marginalized social group to maintain its customs, especially if the larger population is not very accommodative in nature, does not accommodate the way they are. So, otherwise, they feel imperiled, they feel vulnerable and jeopardized. So, in this sense, Funny Boy reflects the resilience of Tamil culture in the face of general adversity and hostility. The theme of cultural preservation in Funny Boy can be seen as a part of a larger, a broader post colonial narrative in which displaced communities very often seek to maintain their cultural identity even as they are forced to move across borders due to unavoidable situations, especially political tensions in their own homeland. So, with this, I would like to stop our lecture here today. Let's meet in our next lecture and we would continue our discussion for some bit more on Funny Boy before we move on to our next topic. Thank you.